the House of Representatives is once again trying to ram through a bill that could give Donald Trump sweeping powers to kill nonprofit groups. Now, Anna covered this bill earlier in the week and a vote in the House that we thought might have killed it. But it's back and could be up for a vote as early as next week. The Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act, which would empower the Secretary of the Treasury to designate any nonprofit as a terrorist supporting organization and revoke its tax-exempt status, is set to go before the Committee on Rules on Monday for a hearing that could tee up the bill for a new floor vote. Now, the bill's opponents warn that if it's passed, it could result in nonprofits being unfairly revoked of their tax-exempt status and deprived of due process. Under the bill, the Treasury Secretary would issue notice to a group of intent to designate it as a terrorist supporting organization. Once notified, an organization would have the right to appeal within 90 days, after which it would be stripped of its 501c3 status, named for the statute that confers tax exemptions on recognized nonprofit groups. The law would not require officials to explain the reason for designating a group, nor does it require the Treasury Department to provide evidence. Financially and materially supporting terrorism is already illegal. So why the need for this bill? To crush the pro-Palestinian movement. The bill was designed to criminalize organizations and activists who oppose the US's unconditional support of Israel's genocide of Palestinians and the slaughter of Lebanese civilians. I read the statement, which was signed by the Council on American Islamic Relations, American Muslims for Palestine, and others. Additionally, the ACLU led an open letter signed by over 125 other groups, warning that if this bill is passed, it could put all of their organizations in danger or jeopardy. Now, if Congress votes for it, we don't know how it could be used, especially under a Trump administration, but we do know if it goes up for another vote, there are potentially 52 Democrats in the House who would vote for it. It failed the first time because it didn't hit a 2/3 majority threshold. Now it would only need a simple majority. Here are some of the Democrats who voted for it last time. Colin Allred, Henry Cuellar, Sharice Davids. Skipping through here, you recognize many of these names: Josh Gottheimer, Richie Torres, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Adam Schiff, Jared Moskowitz. Many of these Democrats are some of the top recipients of AIPAC funding in the House, and we'll get to more.
Wow, I didn't see that coming.
Surprise! And I will, but before we get into, I want to toss to you in a second. I do want to point out there was one Republican who voted against it, and so often this name comes up in these conversations as the one Republican who's doing the right thing. It's Thomas Massie. Cenk, what do you make of this bill?
Yeah, so this is the Israel First crowd, and it is diametrically opposed to right-wing populists. And so I am intensely curious to see if they're gonna notice, if they're gonna do anything, or if they're gonna say, oh, you're saying that anyone who protests Israel should have their nonprofit status removed, which might actually kill the organization entirely. I'll explain why in a second. And so, but they criticize the foreign government. Well, of course you should cancel them. Yay, cancel culture, woohoo! What do you mean freedom? Freedom to speak? Freedom to criticize Israel? You don't have that freedom. MAGA, what are you gonna do? Right-wing populists, what are you gonna do? Are you good with it? America second? Israel first? You're allowed to criticize America all you want, by the way. You're allowed to burn an American flag. You're allowed to say that anything you want about America. You're not gonna get your nonprofit status canceled if you do that. But if you criticize Israel, that's it, you're a terrorist. What evidence do you have of terrorism? Oh, well, the law says I don't need evidence. Well, you know who's the bad guys and who's the good guys when they pass a law saying we don't need evidence to cancel you. Imagine if they said that about the right wing. And by the way, they are saying that about the right wing. If you're in the right wing and you criticize Israel and you got a nonprofit, gone, eliminated. Shut up, that's a foreign government that we all serve here, okay? So you're not allowed to criticize them at all. And by the way, they start with Israel, and then if you're a left-wing or a right-wing nonprofit and you criticize someone else they don't like, and by they I mean any set of donors, Well, then, no, if you go, now you're canceled and your freedoms are taken away. You no longer have American rights, constitutional rights, because Israel first. So every one of those 52 sons of bitch Democrats that voted in favor of this, taking away our freedoms, okay, they're not on the left at all. They're barely American, let alone all the corrupt Republicans. Almost the entirety of the Republican Party, other than the one honest guy. And Thomas Massie, his name comes up all the time because he's very right-wing. We massively disagree with him on social issues and everything else. But at least that one brother has principles. All the rest of the Republican dogs. Oh, my donors, my donors. Oh yeah, cancel culture. Oh, cancel anyone who's against Israel. Come on, this is America? This is America. No, the donors own the place entirely. Next thing you know, we won't be able to criticize drug companies. Shh, don't say anything about the drug companies. They should be able to charge you anything they want. And under free markets and capitalism, you should pay it. Because the donors are 100% in charge. This is sickening, Nina.
Yep, owner donors are in full control of that Congress. This is un-American as hell. So for all those pro-American, liberty, freedom, they should be definitely outraged by this. And those Democrats are cowards, and each and every one of them should be primaried. Here we come, 2026, they should be primaried. I'm not shocked that some Democrats voted along with Republicans to do this, because they are clearly letting us know who they are beholden to. And it's not people from Cleveland, Ohio. It's not people from Los Angeles, California. It's not people from Chicago, Illinois, or East Palestine, Ohio, on and on and on. It is to the people that control their every move, their every thoughts. It is the people who fund their campaigns. This is another example of why we need campaign finance reform. We got to get rid of dark money in politics so that we can have politicians in office who have a spine. The Republicans are being total hypocrites, but this should be of no surprise, because I thought they were against cancel culture, and I thought this was the party of freedom. But we see it's only freedom as they define it. This is really a shame. It's more than that. And we got to awaken American people on this, because like you said, it's this today. It'll be something else tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, just from an organizational perspective, how this might look. So they'll start with pro-Palestine groups. And for the most part, nobody will speak up. We have some progressives in Congress, of course, will speak up, but they, out of all of the interest groups and of all of the advocacy causes represented in the nonprofit space, they probably have the least amount of support in Congress. But it won't end there. And that's where these Democrats who are supporting this bill, and ultimately everyone, is being short-sighted. If you give these powers to a Trump Treasury Department, and then in 6 months, as we could probably expect, the Trump administration ratchets up tensions with Iran. Think about how causes, missions, everything was talked about during the war on terror. If you don't support this war, you ultimately support terrorism. You support the terrorists. If you're not with us, if you oppose this war, if you want peace, if you don't buy into our lies, then who's affected there? Probably the broader anti-war movement. Any group that talks about diplomacy or a better foreign policy under this justification could also be seen as supporting terrorism. What about people who support racial justice or a Black Lives Matter movement? We've seen how the right talks about them. They've called them terrorists. It's not going to end there, and ultimately, this is going to look like the entire broader progressive and to some extent liberal nonprofit and advocacy space totally obliterated. And these 52 Democrats who voted for it, and maybe they'll all vote similarly when it's up for another vote, could ultimately just completely and for the long term kneecap the broader liberal and progressive space that in some ways has supported them. But they are so beholden to AIPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel and this whole pro-Israel lobby, they will sell you, they will sell the Democratic Party, and they will ultimately sell this country if it means they get another donation to their campaign.
Yeah, so go ahead, Nia, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I wanted to add to Jordan's list, Cenk, they will sell their mama. And you know that's pretty damning that they would do this. Well, I mean, no hope, I guess, in the Supreme Court, but this is where we got to try to use the legal system as much as we can if in fact they do this. This is stunning.
Yeah, I mean, again, these laws are unprecedented, where they literally take away your First Amendment rights. And if the Supreme Court, to Nina's point, if the Supreme Court says money in politics is free speech, so you can give, as the Adelsons have, $337 million to Donald Trump, that's just talking to him, right? But if you actually speak, but you speak against Israel, that is not free speech, and you should be punished. Well, then the First Amendment doesn't mean anything anymore, right? And if you're a right winger and you agree with that, you're not, I mean, don't call yourself a populist. Then you're a corrupt, donor-serving Republican, and no problem. There's plenty of those. In fact, all of your politicians outside of Thomas Massey are in that category, right? So, look, why is this so devastating? Because if you take away the nonprofit status, this sucks, but it's true. If people can't give money in a way that is tax-free, like that they could deduct from their taxes, some will still give, but a lot won't, and everybody knows that, and it's a matter of percentages, right? So if you're the ACLU and your job is to protect constitutional rights, as an example, right? And all of a sudden you lose even 40%, and that's a modest number, but 40% of your donors because it's not deductible anymore, you're screwed. You have all these costs, you have all these branches, you have all these cases to conduct because there's tons of cases coming forward, especially will be under the Trump administration. And remember the Muslim ban, et cetera, the ACLU is our first line of defense. Well, Adam Schiff and Moskowitz and all those guys, Richie Torres, et cetera, they just sold us out. So now all those defenses will be totally powered down, will be greatly diminished, if not entirely eliminated, because those traitor Democrats thought that Israel was more important than the country, than the Democratic Party, than the left wing, than our constitutional rights. Why? Oh, they gave me a lot of money, so I had to serve them. It's disgusting. And now if you're a right winger, guys, oh yay, that'd be great to get rid of the ACLU and Democratic groups. I bet they stop there. Is that really how it works? You know that's not how it works, right? Once cancel culture starts, it goes on and on and on until all dissent is crushed. And they'll say, what? You told us it was okay. We said we're gonna do a bill where we take away your First Amendment rights with no evidence, and you said it was okay as long as we did it on behalf of Israel. So now we're gonna take away your rights because you already agreed to it. What are you gonna do now? And the answer will be nothing because it'll be too late by then. And if you're saying, oh, but come on, Cenk, they're not, I mean, they'll only call Muslims terrorists and I'm not Muslim, it's okay. Well, already some of Trump's picks and potential picks have said that Antifa is a terrorist organization. Who's in Antifa? I don't know, Antifa is like the vaguest thing in the world. Antifa is whoever Fox News says is Antifa, right? So they're like, oh, that guy, we don't like him. Antifa, terrorist, put him away, put him away. And Pete Hegseth, nominee for Secretary of Defense, says people on the left are, quote, domestic enemies. And these Democrats now say, oh yeah, let those guys run the place and take away all the safeguards. Because Israel. I'm tired of it, man. All my life, if you said this on TV, you would be fired instantly, right? Cancel culture galore. The criticism of Israel is #1 on the power rankings for cancel culture. #1 way to get your nonprofit status taken away. Oftentimes, laws are passed in different states, including Florida, where they say if you criticize Israel, we'll take your government contracts away, we'll take your food off your family's table, and now they started arresting the students who are criticizing Israel, and Trump says he might arrest and deport anyone who dares to criticize Israel. What part of this is freedom?
I mean, it's anything. You can't do anything. You can't even participate in a boycott, divestment, or sanctions protest in some states. Like, it's illegal. The right has made it illegal in many states throughout this country. You can't do that. You can't demonstrate. What are you allowed to do? If you want to go out there and say, hey, this government shouldn't have, and this military shouldn't have killed 40,000 people, how do you do that legally in the United States? And where are all of these purported free speech lovers in this moment? Because this is a big thing for them, apparently. Where are they? What is the legal pathway to demonstrate en masse or organize against this government? Because they can certainly influence legislation, they can influence elections, they can spend $100 million in our elections, but you're not allowed to boycott? officially, products in some states. What are we doing here?
I'm gonna say the two last things here that I'm gonna go out of school here as usual. Colin Alred, our great savior in Texas, who was gonna win. A corporate Democrat galore, trust us, he's gonna defeat Ted Cruz. How'd that turn out? And of course, Colin Alred signs this bill. Hates freedom, will work. Why don't you do a sign, Colin Alred, that says, we'll work for donors? And Henry Cuellar, Nancy, we told you, basically a Republican voted with Trump 70% of the time. Who helped save his seat by just a couple hundred votes? Nancy Pelosi and the entire Democratic establishment, because Henry Cuellar will do anything a donor tells him to. And finally, Sharice Davids. Very uncomfortable fact, but it is a fact. Shoukat Chakrabarti was the campaign manager for AOC, helped her to win that election, was the head of the Just Democrats, ran that group brilliantly when he was in charge. Pulled off one of the great upsets in American political history, then became her chief of staff, and then 6 months in was basically fired for criticizing Sharice Davids. AOC told him, that's too much. She's one of our beloved colleagues. Is she? The actual populace, the actual progressives said, Sharice Davids not one of your colleagues. She's one of our opponents who will do anything for donor money. Who was right and who was wrong?
I mean, this is McCarthyism on steroids from the 1950s. It is very damning to our country. And I mean, we need every American, regardless of where they land on the political spectrum, to understand that if they come for groups like this, they coming for everybody. And it made me think when Jordan was talking about the racial justice groups, the NAACP, for example, one of the oldest, strongest civil rights organizations in this country's history, was able to use the legal system to force this country to answer some of its promises to Black people in this country in jeopardy. I mean, you just think of, as we said, any pro-peace group is, and how they interpret it, because it's so vague. But this is McCarthyism on steroids, and we just can't stand for it. We cannot. And elections have consequences, so this was brought to you by the Democratic Party.
That's unfortunately very true. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.